The world that you're seeing isn't the true world. All of this that I'm seeing right now is just a virtual reality. It's like you're born with a headset on playing a video game. That's your reality. But if you're the programmer who wrote the code for the game...
Welcome to the summary of a CEO podcast, where we break down the sharpest business insights, boldest leadership lessons, and smartest strategies straight from the top. No fluff, just the powerful ideas you need to think, act, and lead like a CEO. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're jumping right in today with a question that honestly might just shake things up for you. What if everything you see around you, maybe even yourself, isn't the real deal? What if it's more like a very convincing illusion? So our mission in this deep dive is to explore the really radical ideas of cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman.
Yeah, they're pretty out there, but fascinating.
We're going to unpack his claims, that our senses actually hide the truth, how evolution plays a role in that, and maybe discover some, astonishing possibilities that open up.
Exactly. And you should prepare yourself because these ideas really push the boundaries. We're talking about challenging some deeply, deeply ingrained assumptions about reality itself.
So it's definitely an invitation to think critically today.
Absolutely. Lean into it.
Okay, let's start with Hoffman's big metaphor. He says the world we perceive is like a virtual reality headset, or maybe a computer desktop interface.
Right.
It's not the actual reality, just a simplified version. So imagine, what if you were born with that headset permanently on? You've never known anything else. What does that imply?
Well, a huge implication is Hoffman's point about space-time. The space and time we feel we live in. He argues just a trivial aspect of whatever true reality is.
Trivial? How so?
Think about physics. Our best theories, when you push them to extremes, really, really small scales, like 1033 centimeters or incredibly short moments, 1043 seconds space-time just breaks down. Mathematically, it stops making sense.
So it can't be the fundamental bedrock of reality if it disappears at those levels.
Precisely. It suggests space-time is more like the display, the interface itself. Even something solid like the table in front of you, he'd say that's a VR object. An icon. Useful, but not the underlying truth.
Okay, my mind immediately goes to simulation theory. The idea we're living in a giant computer simulation. Is that what Hoffman's saying? Are we characters in a cosmic video game?
That's a common connection people make. But he draws a really crucial distinction. He uses Grand Theft Auto as an analogy.
Okay.
In his view, we aren't just the characters inside the game, programmed by someone else on, like, a laptop sitting outside the game.
Right.
Instead, we're closer to being the conscious programmer. Or rather, consciousness itself is fundamental. It's consciousness that creates the game, the headset, the interface we experience as the physical world.
So the brain, the computer in the analogy, doesn't create consciousness.
No, consciousness creates the icon of the brain as part of the interface to represent whatever processes are generating this experience. There's an entire world outside of the game, totally unlike the game world. Think diodes, resistors, voltages, stuff the character inside knows nothing about.
Wow, okay. So consciousness generates the simulation rather than us just being in one created by something else.
Yeah,
that's a big difference.
it is.
But here's where, for me, it gets really interesting, almost paradoxical. Hoffman claims our senses, eyes, ears, everything, they were not designed to show us the truth.
Exactly. That's probably the most counterintuitive piece.
It feels so wrong. Why wouldn't evolution want us to see things as they really are?
Well, according to Hoffman, and he uses mathematical proofs based on Darwin's own theory, our sensory systems were shaped for one thing and one thing only: reproductive fitness.
Just survival.
Yeah.
Keeping us alive long enough to pass on genes.
That's it. Keep us alive, help us find mates, raise offspring successfully. The probability that any sensory system in any organism evolved to perceive objective reality accurately is, mathematically, effectively zero. Vanishingly small.
Zero. But why? Wouldn't truth be adaptive? Wouldn't seeing reality help us survive better?
You'd think so, intuitively. But his argument is that seeing the actual truth takes way too much time and energy. A perception is expensive. Think about the calories, the brain power needed to process the sheer complexity of objective reality, whatever that might be. Evolution doesn't care about truth, it cares about efficiency. It uses tricks and hacks.
Shortcuts, like icons on a desktop instead of the complex code underneath.
Precisely. Just enough information to guide useful behavior, to make sure we don't walk off cliffs or into predators, and that we find food and mates. Quick and dirty solutions often win out over slow, complex, truthful ones in evolutionary terms.
That actually makes a weird kind of sense. Are there some good examples in nature that show this kind of evolutionary deception.
Oh, absolutely. Hoffman loves the jewel beetle example.
A jewel beetle.
Yeah, male jewel beetles in Australia. They're attracted to things that are dimpled, glossy, and brown because that's what female jewel beetles look like.
Okay.
Well, researchers found males trying desperately to mate with discarded beer bottles.
Beer bottles. Seriously.
Yeah. Because the bottles were dimpled, glossy, brown, and often bigger than the females, which was apparently an even stronger signal. Evolution gave them a simple rule, just enough to usually work, but it wasn't sophisticated enough to tell a real female from a glass bottle. A perfect shortcut that fails in weird ways.
That's kind of funny and also quite telling. What about other animals?
Think about bats using echolocation. They build a world out of sound echoes. It's a completely different reality from our visual one, right?
Yeah.
Totally different interface, shaped for their survival niche.
Right. They see with sound.
Or dogs. Their sense of smell is unbelievable, maybe 300 million receptors versus our 5 million. They live in a world of scent information we can barely imagine. Their hearing range is way beyond ours, too.
So our human senses are just one specific limited toolkit.
Exactly. Specialized for us, not for objective truth. Hoffman even ran these computer simulations, pitting virtual organisms against each other.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
The truth organisms, the ones designed to perceive objective reality in the simulation, they consistently went extinct.
Really?
Yeah. The interface organisms, the ones whose perception was just tuned for survival points within the simulation's rules, they thrived. It was a mathematical demonstration. Seeing truth in an evolutionary game is often a disadvantage compared to having a useful, fitness-focused interface.
Okay, so let's process this. Our senses evolve to hide the truth, creating a useful illusion and interface. This might sound, well, pretty unsettling, like the rug's been pulled out.
It can feel that way initially, definitely.
But you mentioned earlier, and Hoffman argues, that understanding this is actually liberating. How does knowing we're living in a sort of headset change things? How does it transform how we live?
It's potentially hugely liberating. Because if you grasp that you are, in some sense, the inventor of this whole thing, that your consciousness is generating this experience, then suddenly you realize you have nothing to prove.
What do you mean, nothing to prove?
So much of our anxiety, our feelings of inadequacy, competition, chasing status, ego, it stems from identifying with the avatar, mistaking ourselves for just this limited object in space-time.
Like a character worried about its score in the game.
Exactly. But if you realize, wait, I'm the one creating this whole game, this whole experience, then the need to compare yourself to other avatars, to compete in that way, it starts to dissolve.
Right.
You're already the source, the infinite potential behind the avatar.
That shift. Wow. It sounds very much like what you hear in various spiritual traditions.
It absolutely resonates. Many traditions talk about a reality beyond space and time, right? Hoffman's framework provides a potential scientific language for that. He talks about potentially one transcendent infinite consciousness.
And we're all expressions of that.
You and I are just avatars, as he puts it, different perspectives, different headsets that this one consciousness is experiencing reality through. It puts a different spin on teachings like love your neighbor as yourself.
Because your neighbor is yourself.
In a fundamental way, yes.
Yeah.
Like Jesus saying in Matthew 25, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. It points to that underlying unity, seeing the divine, the one consciousness in everyone.
Okay, so if we're usually caught up in the headset view, identifying with the avatar, how do we access that deeper reality, that sense of being the programmer or the one consciousness? Are there practical ways?
Well, the classic method, and one Hoffman points to, is meditation, or practices aimed at quieting the mind.
How does that help?
The goal is to drop all descriptions, to sit in silence, observe thoughts without engaging, and basically ignore the constant chatter from the headset. Thoughts, descriptions, concepts, they're tools for navigating the interface, for playing the game of life.
Useful for science or building things or planning dinner.
Exactly. Essential for functioning within the headset. But they aren't the way to know who you truly are beyond the headset. That requires getting quiet enough to glimpse what remains when the descriptions fall away.
And that can be challenging.
Oh, definitely. He calls it potentially a death of an illusion. Letting go of who you thought you were, your identity tied to the avatar, can feel like a kind of death. It can be painful, disorienting, but ultimately the idea is it leads to freedom.
Right. Now, moving beyond the personal and philosophical, I understand Hoffman isn't just talking concepts. He's actually trying to, mathematically derive physics from consciousness, Reverse engineer the headset.
That's the incredibly ambitious project, yes. His conscious agent network theory.
Conscious agents, what are those?
Think of them as fundamental units of consciousness, interacting in a vast network. His goal is to show how the laws of physics as we know them, space-time, quantum fields, particles, the whole standard model emerge from the dynamics of these conscious agents.
So instead of physics being fundamental and consciousness emerging somehow from matter,
He's flipping it. Consciousness is fundamental, and the physical world, including physics, emerges from consciousness. He's trying to build the mathematical headset from the ground up, starting with consciousness. He's even published papers suggesting how things like the constant speed of light could be an emergent property of these agent interactions.
that's a monumental task. If he or someone were successful, if we could understand the code of reality at that level, what kind of technologies might become possible? He hints at things that dwarf current tech.
Yeah, the potential implications are staggering. He's talked about possibilities that would make nuclear bombs like firecrackers.
Like what?
Well, think about the Grand Theft Auto analogy again. If you could hack the code from outside the game.
You could change things instantly.
Exactly. You could move your car from one side of the map to the other instantly without driving the roads within the game's space-time. So theoretically, if space-time is just our interface, maybe you could manipulate the underlying code to achieve effects like instantaneous travel across vast cosmic distances.
Like going to Andromeda without actually flying through the intervening space.
Potentially. Or manipulating the code in ways that, from within our space-time headset, might look like immediate time travel, because you're operating outside the rules of the interface itself.
Mind blown. But that also sounds incredibly dangerous, like opening Pandora's box. The ethical considerations.
Oh, absolutely enormous. Huge moral questions arise. Who gets to wield that power? How is it controlled? It's a valid concern.
How does Hoffman address that?
From the ultimate perspective, the perspective of the one consciousness, he might suggest that, in a way, all is well. Nothing can truly harm the fundamental reality of the one. All these avatars, these headsets, they are temporary experiences within that one consciousness. The game might get intense, but the player isn't ultimately harmed.
That's a very detached view, perhaps. It brings us back to the really human stuff, though. What about suffering? What about death? How does this perspective help us face those unavoidable parts of the avatar experience?
It's a crucial question, and Hoffman had a very stark personal encounter with this himself. He had a severe case of long COVID, went through 2 heart surgeries, and had a near-death experience. He literally sent a goodbye message to his wife, thinking that was it.
Wow.
And he said that experience showed him very vividly how deeply he was still identified with his physical avatar. Despite all his intellectual understanding of transcendence, the raw fear, the attachment to that particular life, that specific headset, it was overwhelmingly real.
So the theory doesn't just erase the human experience of fear or loss.
No, not at all. It provides a framework for understanding it. From that transcendent view, suffering could be seen like, well, like damage indicators in a video game. Wounds you get in a video game, as he puts it.
Signals within the headset, important for navigating the game.
Right. They guide the avatar's behavior, teach lessons, signal danger within the rules of the interface. But they don't ultimately damage the player, the underlying consciousness. He points to symbols like the crucifixion. It's this image of absolute horrific suffering. Yet the story goes, Jesus forgives his tormentors from the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. It suggests a capacity for love, for transcendent perspective, even in the midst of the most extreme avatar suffering. It hints at seeing beyond the game from the perspective of the one consciousness. That's powerful. It circles back to that idea of unity, doesn't it? Loving your neighbor because they are you. That thread seems to run through so many different paths. Exactly. Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism. You find echoes of that core idea. We see the divine in the other, because the other is ultimately another expression of the same source.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's try to distill some key takeaways for you, the listener. First, maybe it's that idea. Try to love your neighbor as yourself, because on some fundamental level, they are you. Another facet of this infinite consciousness. And second, maybe always keep that childlike curiosity alive, because reality, whatever it truly is, seems far, far stranger and more interesting than our everyday interface suggests. Don't assume you've got it all figured out.
Definitely not. The moment you think you know everything, you're almost certainly missing the bigger picture.
Anything else to leave folks mulling over?
Yeah, maybe this final thought. So much of our daily stress, our striving, our suffering comes from this deep-seated belief that we need to become something more or prove our worth within the game.
That we're inadequate as we are.
Right. But what if you started from the premise that you are already the infinite, that you're already complete, you're the source creating the experience?
Right.
Then maybe the suffering is often just temporary confusion, forgetting who you are by getting lost in the avatar story.
A story you chose to play, perhaps to learn.
Exactly. Maybe you play the game of limitation, of being an avatar, precisely to discover who you truly are by experiencing what you are not. And that process of waking up within the game, remembering your true nature, that's where real freedom might lie.
Profound ideas to grapple with. If this has piqued your interest, we really recommend checking out Donald Hoffman's book, The Case Against Reality: How Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes. Deepak Chopra said of it, "Read this book carefully and you will forever change your understanding of reality."
It's definitely a challenging but rewarding read.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the very nature of reality. We hope it's given you a lot to think about.